On May 3rd, 2025, The Times, a respected UK newspaper, reported on yet another Russian misinformation campaign. This time, the target was Anas Sarwar. He's the leader of the Scottish Labour Party. Russian trolls accused him of conspiring with Muslims to seize political power, suggesting that he viewed Pakistani immigrants and not ethnic Scots as his true compatriots. At first glance, this might seem just like another foreign interference campaign designed to inflame ethnic tensions and erode trust in public and democratic institutions. But something about this case is different. The story wasn't published in English. It was published in Gaelic, a minority language spoken by only 1 in 40 Scots. You might wonder, why did Russian trolls use such a niche language? Well, there are 2 reasons. First, online content in minority languages is rarely as closely monitored as those in dominant ones. This means that misinformation can circulate much longer and even contaminate AI chatbots trained on these texts. But the second reason, and this is the one I want to focus on today, is more subtle. By using Gaelic, the misinformation taps directly into the identity of Gaelic-speaking Scots, making it more persuasive, more credible, and more dangerous. In the next few minutes, I will be talking about why belief in misinformation doesn't just come from a lack of knowledge or choosing the wrong news sources. It is often a consequence of identity. If we want to address misinformation effectively, we must understand how group belonging shapes our beliefs and how they can also be a powerful part of the solution. Let me start by asking you one question. How would you define your identity? First, you might think of your personal traits. Maybe you're someone who likes to read, someone who's very invested into knitting, or someone who drinks way too much coffee. But you can also think of yourself in terms of the group that you belong to. For example, a soccer team, a social movement, a political party, a language group, a nation, or even a continent. Being trained as a social psychologist, I learned a lot about the different sources for our identities. We do not only have one, but hold multiple identities at the same time. Depending on the context, one identity might be more salient over the other. For example, right now, I mostly identify as a researcher. However, later, after this talk is done, I might think of myself more in terms of a tourist in Saarbrücken. Some identities are also more inclusive than others. Being on vacation in France, I might identify as a German citizen. When traveling to the US, however, I might think of myself more as a European and now sharing the same in-group with my French neighbors. Group identities are deeply meaningful because they provide fundamental human needs. They provide us with a sense of belonging, of meaning, and of security. And that's why we're usually highly motivated to be seen as good members of our groups. What I want to highlight here is that these group memberships do not only shape the way we see ourselves and we see others, they also guide the way we think about the world and interpret it. This deep need to belong to groups has severe implications for our information processing. According to research, when accuracy clashes with in-group loyalty, our brains often choose loyalty. It is psychologically just more beneficial to adhere to the group and to echo the group than to challenge their beliefs. This phenomenon is termed motivated reasoning, where our information processing is guided by the desire to align new information with the existing beliefs of our in-group, rather than by being accurate. Let me give you an example. Me and my colleagues, we conducted a study on misinformation about Russia in Germany. We presented German participants with misinformation about the war in Ukraine. Some of these participants had a Russian heritage and some that didn't have a Russian heritage. And what we found was striking. Participants with a Russian heritage that identified with Russia were much more susceptible to Russian misinformation. Neither political orientation, nor age, nor gender sufficiently explained this effect. Identity did. And this finding isn't unique. Dozens of studies have shown that identity-related factors, such as ideology, language, or heritage, consistently shape the way how people judge the truthfulness of information. Being in line with your group is more beneficial than being correct. And yes, cognitive abilities matter too, but in large-scale studies, social identity has emerged as one of the most persistent and strongest predictors of belief in misinformation. So what can be done about this? How can we change this identity-based vulnerability to misinformation? With my focus on social psychology, I'm going to present you 3 evidence-based strategies. They are called inoculation, empathy, and identity building. Inoculation is a psychological technique that protects the mind from misinformation. Think of it like a mental vaccine. First, you're warned about misleading content. Then you're exposed to small doses of misinformation, alongside with explanations of why they are misleading, what tactics are being used, and what common narratives are at play. After this small exposure, you are kind of like activating your cognitive immune response. Later, when you come across real misinformation, you're more likely to detect it as such and less likely to fall for it. Research shows that inoculation works. Meta-analyses confirm its effectiveness, and it's already implemented in the real world, for example, in forms of videos or online games. In our own study, inoculated participants were better at spotting Russian misinformation. And they also perceived it as less credible. And here's something surprising. Inoculation even worked for those people who strongly identified with Russia. Their social identity didn't block the intervention effect, but everyone did benefit. The second intervention against identity-based misinformation is called empathy. A group of researchers around Dawn Halford were looking for a way to engage with patients who were highly skeptical of medically safe vaccines. Traditionally, the approach here was simple, correcting false beliefs by stating the facts. But over time, research has shown that the stronger someone holds a misconception, the less likely they are to accept corrections, especially when those corrections threaten their sense of identity. Even trusted healthcare professionals fail to change the attitudes of highly skeptical patients. Dawn Halford and his colleagues realized that something was missing. Something in how these conversations between healthcare provider and patient were being held. They suspected that before facts could work, patients needed to feel heard. So they developed what they call the empathetic refutational interview. Instead of jumping straight to the corrections, this approach gives people space to voice their doubts and their fears. These concerns are then met with genuine empathy and affirmation, and without judgment. Only after that, once a trusting connection has been built between healthcare provider and patient, do the facts come in. And it worked. Patients who received this approach reported more positive relationships with their healthcare providers and were also more open to accepting corrections, even if they self-identified as anti-vaxxers. The lesson here, if we listen, and I mean really listen to people who believe something different than we do, we create the space to be heard in return. Empathy can open the door to accepting corrections. With inoculation and empathy, I've shown you how misinformed beliefs can be changed, despite being strongly tied to identities. The last approach, however, flips the script. It's about building powerful identities that are resilient to misinformation in the first place. This last strategy, identity building, wasn't developed in the lab, but in the real world. In countries like Latvia and Finland, which rank among the most resilient ones to misinformation worldwide. These countries have long histories with Russia, especially marked by oppression and occupation. Today, still sizable Russian-speaking communities live in this place, making them prime targets for identity-based misinformation from the Kremlin. The approach of these countries on the front line goes beyond simple debunking. Communication strategists realized that only by exposing misinformation, they didn't do enough. People needed something stronger to hold on to, a compelling narrative. In 2024, the Latvian government launched a campaign called My Latvia, My Responsibility. It's more than a slogan. It's a call to action, spread through public awareness campaigns, local governments, businesses, and even photo competitions. The message is simple but powerful. The strength, the resilience, and the future of Latvia depend on every citizen. Everyone has a role in protecting their country, not only physically, but psychologically. This kind of intervention doesn't just only fight misinformation. It creates connectedness, it creates a shared purpose, it creates belonging, and it creates pride. And this can be far more powerful than any misinformation. So, what can we take away from these three approaches? Whether it is through inoculation, empathy, or identity building, the key insight is this. Misinformation isn't just about a lack of facts. It's about a lack of connection, of trust, of belonging, and of identity. We cannot fact-check our way out of a world flooded with misinformation, but we can build psychological immunity before the lies arrive. We can have conversations rooted in empathy and not confrontation. If misinformation exploits our need to belong, then maybe the strongest antidote is building resilient communities that are truly worth belonging to. We can create shared identities that are stronger than the narratives which are trying to divide us. In the end, misinformation isn't just about what we know. It's about who we are and how we relate to one another. If we understand that, we do not only protect minds, we empower societies. In the end, identity is not just a vulnerability. It is also our greatest strength. Thank you.